Right. Good evening, my dear students. Today we are going to discuss about our prescribed poetry. Under the category of poetry, today we are going to discuss about romantic poetry. So we have been discussing about romantic poetry, and under the category of romantic poetry, we discussed about the Chimney Sweepers by William Blake. We discussed about the first generation of romantic poets and the second generation of romantic poets. Under that, William Blake and John Keats, they belong to the second generation of romantic poets. Samuel Taylor Coleridge and William Wordsworth belong to the first generation of romantic poets. Now, we have been discussing about our prescribed poem. This is actually the second poem under the category of romantic poems. This poem is known to be Ode to a Nightingale. So we discussed some facts related to John Keats. We discussed about his personal life. And then we discussed about what kind of perspective, what kind of narrative that he had when it comes to his writing, especially when it comes to romantic movement. Most of the romantic poets, they paid a lot of attention. They gave a lot of attention towards nature. So this can be taken as one of the key features when we discuss about romantic poetry. If you take William Wordsworth, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, P.B. Shelley, John Keats, William Blake, one of the key features of all these romantic poets that we have to understand is that they wanted to escape from the reality. Almost all these poets, they wanted to escape from the reality. And these poets, they used different types of methods in order to do this escape, right? In order to do this escape, they use different types of mechanisms, right? If you take John Keats, we discussed about John Keats, the prescribed poet. There are certain things that you have to remember when it comes to John Keats, my dear students. Number one, John Keats is known to be one of the greatest poets who represented the Romantic era, and he suffocated from tuberculosis. In Sinhala, you call Sheroge, right? At that time period, he did not find any medicine for that. So at the age of 23, he died, right? He died from tuberculosis. So not only him, even his family members, including his brother, died from tuberculosis. So when he wrote all these poems, at that time period, he suffocated from this particular disease. So he wanted some kind of escapism, right? He has expected some kind of escapism from his physical illness because he knew that he is going to die. These personal information can be identified as something very much important. So please make sure to note down these things, right? Because these things are very much important when we discuss about the poem. When we discuss about the poem Ode to a Nightingale, John Keats is actually addressing to a nightingale. And the basic idea behind the poem is John Keats actually suffocated from the tuberculosis, this particular disease. So this is a kind of a mortal disease. At that time period, they did not find any cure. So John Keats knew that he is going to die. No one is going to save him. So when he was writing poetry, he knew that he is going to die. There is no hard and fast rule. He knew that he is going to die. So what he needed some kind of relief, right? As a person who knew that he is going to die, by writing poetry, he needed some kind of freedom. He needed some kind of emancipation. In order to find this emancipation, he wrote poetry. Ode to a Nightingale can be taken as one of the masterpieces when it comes to John Keats, because even in this poem, we can clearly understand what kind of escapism is actually expected by him. So make sure to remember the word escapism. Most of the romantic poets, they loved nature and they wanted to escape from the reality. So that is why they wrote most of the poems. Different poets, including the first generation and second generation, they had their own methods of escapism, right? Where John Keats, he always needed escapism. He always needed to escape from the reality when it comes to his physical illness, right? He suffocated from tuberculosis. As a result of that, his brother also died from tuberculosis. His girlfriend actually left him due to his disease. So he was totally upset and he was facing a lot of depression. He did not have any alternative at all. As a result of that, he used poetry in order to get away from his pain, get away from his suffocation. These are the major ideas that you have to remember when it comes to John Keats and, my dear students, when it comes to this poem as well. My dear students, unlike the other poems, this poem is very difficult to understand. So I will give you all the difficult words as well. So please make sure to write down all the difficult words as well. Another point that you all have to pay your attention is when it comes to John Keats, you have to identify that when it comes to his poems, John Keats can be identified as a poet who loved Greek mythology or else Greek mythology, right? So in most of the poems, he has used different types of gods and goddesses who are belong to Greek mythology, right? So in some perspectives, certain words, certain gods, certain goddesses, certain places, certain rivers, which belong to the Greek mythology will be included in his poems. So please make sure to highlight these parts, because without understanding those things, it will be very difficult to understand his poem. So that is one of the key features when it comes to John Keats. There are a number of places where that we have to pay our attention when it comes to Greek mythology. There are certain goddesses and gods that we have to highlight when it comes to his poems. So as I said, Ode to a Nightingale can be taken as an ode. I explained you in the previous video log. An ode can be taken as an addressing poem. Addressing poem means you are addressing some kind of animate or inanimate thing. It can be a bird, it can be a river, it can be a mountain. So you are addressing someone. So these addressing poems are known as odes. John Keats addresses a beautiful bird who can sing really well. The name of the bird is Nightingale. Normally, when it comes to spoken English, if a girl or boy is singing really well, we normally use the word, wow, you are singing like a nightingale. So Nightingale is very popular when it comes to singing, right? Unlike the other birds, right? Birds are different from their features and characteristics. Now, peacock is a very beautiful bird, attractive bird, right? Hummingbird is very small bird. But when it comes to a nightingale, what is the striking feature? My dear students, the striking feature of a nightingale is the nightingale's song. Nightingales can sing. That is what we believe. So this particular poem is actually a kind of a story or else kind of an addressing to the nightingale. Nightingale means the bird. So this bird is very special. Why? Because the bird can sing. As I told you, this poem is very difficult to understand because of several reasons. Number one, there are a lot of places where we can find Greek mythology. Greek mythology refers to there are certain places, certain situations, certain gods and goddesses that you have to identify. On the other hand, there are certain difficult words that you have to come across, right? So please make sure to highlight those words and then try to understand. And you have to understand the background of John Keats as well. When John Keats writing this poem, he was suffocating from the tuberculosis. He was about to die. He was having an immense mental pain and physical pain both together. Why physical pain is there? Because he suffocated from tuberculosis. Why there is a mental pain? Because he lost his mother and father and his one and only brother. Due to this disease, his girlfriend left him, right? As a result of that, he was facing tremendous mental pressure as well, right? So that idea should be also there in your mind. Make sure to understand, right? From that suffocation, by going through that suffocation only, he is writing this particular poem. So he needed some kind of escapism. He wanted to give up all the suffering. As a result of that only, he is writing this particular poem, right? So he is actually addressing the nightingale and he is trying to appreciate the world of nightingale, or else we can call the nature. And he is trying to escape from his reality to this fantasy world. This fantasy world is known as nature. This fantasy world is known as nature, right? So I think we have discussed the first stanza. I explained you all these difficult words as well last week. Please go through the video. And then we came to this particular place where, as I told you, we find a lot of Greek mythology in this particular poem. So here he discusses about Lethe, a river in Hades, the underworld, souls about to be reincarnated, drank from it to forget their past lives. So here he discusses about a place called Lethe River. This Lethe River is found in Greek mythology, where Hades, the what do you call, the goddess of underworld, where the dead people souls are actually taken to this Lethe River. according to Greek mythology, right? So souls about to be reincarnated drank from it to forget their past lives. So if you drink water from this river, they will definitely forget their past lives, right? So this is also a part actually included in the first stanza, another example for Greek mythology, right? So we will read the first idea. We will complete the first idea. I think I completed this part last week. So then we will discuss other difficult words. So we have the word tis. Tis refers to it is. Envy means jealousy. Thy means you or the nightingale. Thine means your. Dryad means a wood nymph or nymph of the trees. Dryads are nymphs were female personification of natural features like mountains and rivers. They were young, beautiful, long-lived, and liked music and dance. A dryad was connected to a specific tree and died when the tree died, right? So they were known as actually Ruksha Devatao in Sinhala, right? Dryads. The word is actually used as dryads. So there are certain archaic language as well. As you can see here, thy means archaic language. In modern English, it is known to be you. Thine means archaic language. In modern English, it is known to be your, right? So these are the difficult words that you have to come across. And I think you have completed this part. Rishma, did you write this part, Puta? Did you complete the difficult words? Lakisha, did you write this part last week or previous week? Did you complete this part? Did you write the difficult words? We will go to the explanation after writing all the difficult words. That is the most important, or that is the most easy way that we can find this particular poem. All right, okay, hurry up and write down these words. They are actually difficult words that you have to go through. And after that, we will discuss the meaning of entire stanza. Hurry up and write down. Right. I hope that you guys have completed. I will move on to the next part. Right. Okay. So we have the beechen. The word beechen means overgrown and melodious means musical. Right. So these are the other two words that you have to pay your attention. So now we have to pay our attention. We will discuss stanza wise. What is the meaning of this particular stanza when it comes to simple English, right? When it comes to simple English, right? So this is how we start, right? While my explanation is continuing, you guys can write down. Don't wait to write, don't take a lot of time to write because we have to complete the poem as soon as possible, right? So while my explanation is there, you guys can write down and finish it off. So we are going to explain the first stanza. So the poet is actually referring to his own pain, his suffocation. I told you he is suffering from tuberculosis, right? He is suffering from a deadly disease. So he knew that he is going to die and he was having a terrible suffocation, not only a physical suffocation, but also a mental suffocation. You know the reason for physical suffocation, that is the tuberculosis, obviously. On the other hand, the mental suffocation is his girlfriend actually left him due to this particular deadly disease. On the other hand, he lost his brother and mother and father as well due to tuberculosis. So he is the only person in the family who is going to die. He doesn't have any family members. On the other hand, he has lost his girlfriend as well. So he is in pain. There is no doubt about that. In the first stanza itself, he is trying to explain that particular pain. So he starts the line something like this: my heart is in pain and my body feels numb and tired. What do you mean by numb? Numb means you can't feel anything, right? Right? Numb and tired. He is so tired. Now you know what is the reason for this tiresome behavior, right? Now you know what is the reason. The reason is actually he is suffocating from tuberculosis. That is the reason, right? That is the reason. So he openly tells that. So in the first stanza itself, we can understand what kind of suffocation that he goes through when it comes to his life, right? He openly tells that. He openly tells that numbness, right? Loss or weakening of the power. Right now he can't move because of this tuberculosis, right? I feel like I have drunk from the poisonous hemlock plant. So if you can remember, I explained that part here with the picture. As you can see here the a poison made from an herb or a poisonous drink made from that herb. So here you can see that particular plant, right? This is what we call the hemlock. This is the flower actually, as you can see here on the screen. So he openly tells that he feels that he has drunk something poisonous, right? He felt something like that. Now again, you can realize what he tries to explain here is that he is going to die, right? He is going to die. This is the idea that you have to understand, right? So in this particular picture, you can understand the hemlock, a poison made from an herb or a poisonous drink made from that herb. So here you can see the picture, right? So he openly explains the fact that I feel like I have drunk from the poisonous hemlock plant, or like I have just taken some kind of opiate drug and fallen into the waters of Leith, the Leith River. Right? Can you remember what I explained about the Leith River? I told you Leith River can be taken as an ancient river which belongs to the Greek mythology. Anyone who drinks water from this river will definitely forget his past, right? So definitely that particular person will forget everything. So now you can understand he wanted to forget everything in his life. He is having a terrible pain and he is having a drowsy numbness pain, and he explains the fact that he is very tired. At the same time, he tells that he felt like he has drank a poison which is actually made from a hemlock plant, right? Or else he has actually drank some water, some opiate drug. Opiate means a drug, right? Opiate drug, and fallen into the waters of Leith. So I told you this Greek mythology, right? You can clearly understand the river actually belonged to the Greek mythology. Throughout the poem, we basically have 8 stanzas in the poem. Throughout the poem, we can see number of places where this Greek mythology will take place. So please make sure to write all these difficult words. I explained you all the difficult words. That is something very important that we have to pay our attention. Right? The hemlock can be taken as a poisonous plant with fern-like leaves and small white flowers. A poisonous potion obtained from this, right? A poisonous potion will be made from this. So this is what we call a poisonous plant, right? So he felt like that. So in the first few lines of the first stanza, what the readers can realize is that the writer, the poet, openly explains the suffocation. You know the suffocation. You know the reason for suffocation. Why? Why this particular person is feeling this suffering? Because of tuberculosis. Because of tuberculosis, right? He is suffering from a deadly disease. At that time period, there was no cure. There was no cure. So he is suffering from deadly disease. So he knew that he is going to die. That is number one. That is the physical pain. Number two, the mental depression. Why the mental depression is there? Because he lost his mother, because he lost his brother, and at the end of the day, his girlfriend left him because of this terrible disease. His girlfriend identified that there is no future for that particular girl with him. As a result of that, she left him. As a result of that, she left him. So you can understand John Keats is in a terrible condition. It is a mental depression as well as a physical depression. Both are there, right? That is what we can understand when we refer to the first stanza. If you read very carefully, you can very clearly understand that. And most importantly, the part about the Greek mythology is something very much important that you have to pay your attention. The Leith River, right? So from the first few lines of the first stanza, we can understand the poet wanted to emancipate. The poet wanted to get a relief from this terrible suffocation. He wanted to enter to the fantasy world. He wanted to escape on romantic poetry. Romantic poetry, we discuss about escapism. He wanted to escape from this suffocation. This is what you have to pay your attention, right? I hope you guys can understand, right? So I have explained here the river in the ancient Greek mythological underworld that makes you forget everything. If you drink water from this particular river, what will happen? You will forget everything. So John Keats actually needed to forget everything. He lost his girlfriend, his one and only brother, his mother and father. He lost almost everyone in his life. There was no one to help him. And he was suffering from a deadly disease. And he knew that he is going to die. So he wanted to forget everything at all. He wanted to forget everything. Every single thing. That is why he used this particular river. When you drink water, you will forget everything, your past. So he purposely needed to forget his past. He purposely needed to forget his past. I hope you can understand. Don't forget he is addressing the nightingale. So all these explanations are given to the nightingale. Furthermore, he says, Nightingale, I am not jealous of how happy you sound. Nightingale, you are really happy. I can see that you are really happy, right? You are really happy. Light-winged, having wings that help you to fly quickly. You have light-winged bird, right? You are really happy. But I am not jealous with you. So he's openly telling the nightingale the fact that now you can see the contrast. The poet is totally in a sad mood. On the other hand, Nightingale is in a happy mood. This is what we call contrast in literature. This is a technique, my dear students, that you have to remember. This is what we call contrast, right? In literature, this is what we call contrast, right? So the poet says, now I am in a sad mood. You are in a happy mood, but I am not jealous. I don't have any jealousy towards you. Don't misunderstand. I don't have that kind of idea towards you, right? I am not jealous. He openly says that. I am not jealous of how happy you sound. I feel like this because I am too happy to hear you sing, right? I am too happy to hear you sing, where he says, "'Tis not though envy of thy happy lot." Envy. Envy means jealousy. If you read the poem very carefully, it is in the fourth line in the first stanza. If you read very carefully, you can find out that, not in the fourth line, I am sorry, in the fifth line. "'Tis not though envy of thy happy lot." Thy means you, right? I have explained that. Thy happy lot. Not because that you are happy. I am not jealous about your happiness. I am really happy because, but being too happy in thine happiness. I am too happy to see that you are in a happy mood. Nightingale, please try to understand. I am not having any jealous with you. I am not jealous, right? I am not jealous. Now you are happy. I know that is why you sing in a beautiful voice, in a beautiful tone. But I am in a sad mood. There is no doubt about that. But I don't have any jealousy. I am happy. I am too happy, where he openly says that. It is actually in line number 7. But being too happy in thine happiness. I am too happy by looking at your happiness, right? I compare my happiness with you and I see that you are much more happy than me, right? You are happier than myself. So by looking at that, I am happy too, right? I am happy too. That thou light-winged dryad of the trees. Light-winged, that word is very much important. Light-winged means your wings are very much light. right? So low in weight, so you can fly very fast, right? That is the word. So dryad, I have explained the word dryad refers to a nymph inhabiting a tree, right? Pruksha devataavak කියන අදහස. Dryad, a mythical tree spirit in your patch of overgrown greenery and shadows, singing summer songs with all your might, right? You are living in these beautiful beach and green. Beach and green means the beautiful greenery world, right? It can be a kind of a forest, right? And you are singing a melodious plot, a plot with a melody, melodious plot, right? Land where there is music. Now, there melodious plot can have two different ideas. Number one, the nightingale is living in a particular land where there is beautiful songs because nightingale is singing. But when it comes to the poet's world, it is totally different. My dear students, you have to understand there are two different worlds. The poet's world is full of suffocation. There are a lot of diseases. People suffer from poverty. They don't have any happiness at all, right? The poet is suffering from tuberculosis. But when it comes to the nightingale's world, the fantasy world is something totally different than that, where we don't find any unhappy situation, where we don't find any suffocation, where we don't find any humiliation. Always happiness can be seen almost everywhere, right? Melodious plot, a plot of land with a lot of happiness. Beach and green. What do you mean by beach and green? Beach and green refers to the beautiful greenery island, right? Grassy plot of land where different types of plants will grow, right? Grassy land, right? Grassy land. That is the word called beach and green means grassy land. Shady places, right? It is actually full of darkness. The shady places full of darkness due to a lot of trees, right? Full-throated is loudly and heartily, but without any effort. You sing beautifully, right? You sing beautifully. I'm really happy about that. But in my world, the situation is totally different. So what is the plain idea that we have to pay our attention? The poet openly starts to explain about the suffocation. My heart aches. I feel sleepy and loss of the power of movement. I can't walk. I can't go here and there because I am suffocating from tuberculosis. We should know that. My sense had sunk. I have lost myself. Now I feel that I have drunk hemlock. You know what do you mean by hemlock? Or as if I have emptied some dull opiate, or else I felt that I have taken some water from the Leith River, or else I have fallen into the Leith River, so I have forgotten everything. I can see that you are really happy. You are having a really happy time period, but I am not envy with you. I don't have any jealousy with you. I am also happy because I have seen your happiness, right? But because of being too happy about your happiness, that is what I can explain. I am not envy with you because of your happiness, but because of being too happy about your happiness, you who are the light-winged nymph. So here the bird is actually compared to a nymph. මෙතන මේ කුරුල්ලව වන දෙව්ලියකට සමාන කරනවා. මේකට අපි කියනවා රූපකාර්ථවත් බස්වහරක් කියලා metaphor. In English you call the word metaphor, right? So you who are the light-winged nymph of the forest are singing of the summer in full-throated ease. You are singing in the summer full-throated ease. You are singing songs effortlessly. But for me, I can't do that. I have to put extra effort to sing a song because I am suffering from a disease. But for you, the situation is not like that. You can easily sing. You can easily sing, right? Full-throated ease at the green beech trees and innumerable shade, right? Innumerable shade, where you can see a lot of shade. The shade is there because of a lot of trees, right? Can you understand the idea of the first stanza? Vijayanta Puta, can you understand?
Yes, sir.
Rishma, did you write Puta? Shall we move on to the next part, Pute? This is the idea of the first stanza. Did you write
Yes,
Puta?
sir. I wrote that.
Right. Hurry up and finish and pass me a message. So when we refer to the first stanza, my dear students, you can understand the suffocation. Number one, the suffocation. We can understand the poet is suffering. Due to that suffering, he needed some kind of escapism. Can you understand that? He did not want to live in this particular world because he knew that he is going to die. He knew that he is going to die. Now he needed some kind of escapism. So he did not use any alcohol. Nowadays, Vijayanta will agree with me. When we need some kind of escapism, we will use a beer or else some kind of alcohol, right? But when it comes to these poets, they did not do that. They used poetry. They used poetry, right? This is the difference that we can understand, right? But when we discuss about Samuel Taylor Coleridge, the situation is totally different. But when it comes to John Keats, Puta, the situation is different. Where he wanted to write poems. not to enjoy other people, like he did not want to what do you call impress other people. Now when we are writing a poem, Rishma, we want other people to enjoy that poem, right? So we want other people to comment, and we want other people to send a message, wow, your poem is very nice, you are a really good writer. But John Keats did not need that. John Keats never expected that as well. John Keats actually wrote poems, Rishma, for his personal happiness. He needed some kind of personal happiness and personal escapism. He was suffering from tuberculosis, just like a cancer. He knew that he is going to die, right? Sooner or later, he is going to die. But he needed some kind of escapism. So, from the reality, he wanted to go to the fantasy. The reality world is the world that where this poet lives, and the fantasy world is the Nightingale's world. Nightingale belongs to the nature, so that is why he becomes a romantic poet, because he writes the beauty of nature. Rishma, did you understand that part, Puta?
Yes, sir.
Ah, right. Very good. Okay. So we will move on to the next part. I hope our students have understood. So we are moving to the second part of Ode to a Nightingale. This is the second stanza. As you can see here on the screen, there are a lot of difficult words, right? So I will explain you all the words one by one. Please make sure to write down all the difficult words, right? I will highlight the difficult words as well. Oh, for a drought of vintage that hath been cooled a long age in the deep delved earth, tasting of flora and the country green, dance and provencal song and sunburned mirth. Oh, for a beaker full of the warm south, full of the true, the blushful hippocrene, with beaded bubbles winking at the brim, and purple stained mouth, that I might drink and leave the world unseen, and with thee fade away into the forest dim. Very beautiful stanza. Very beautiful stanza. So we are starting the second stanza, right? So we have a lot of difficult words here. We will try to understand them one by one, right? So let's go to the explanation of the difficult words, right? What are the difficult words that we find? First one, we find the word drought. Drought means a serving of drink from a large container, a barrel, rather than in a bottle. So you are serving a drink, kind of a drink here. That is what we call a drought, right? Drink. A single gulp of wine, you may say. Right, okay. Then we have the difficult word vintage. What do you mean by vintage? The oldness of wines. When we take wine, Puta, the more the wine is old, the more you get the quality, right? More quality will be gained when the wine is old, right? We normally use the English phrase as old as wine, right? So when the wine is old, it will get much more better, better and better, right? Then we have the word delve, right? What do you mean by delve? To turn up, loosen, or to remove earth. Make sure to write down all the difficult words, then we will discuss the explanation separately, right? First and foremost, write down the difficult words. Mirth. Mirth means great happiness beaker, or else a cup, usually without a handle. Palsy means a medical condition marked by uncontrollable tremor, right? Palsy. Provencal means for medieval poetry and courtly traditions, kind of a song, medieval poetry. Sunburnt myth means happy sunshine. So first and foremost, make sure to write down all the difficult words, because when we discuss about John Keats, most of the students, they feel very difficult to understand the poem because of the language. So first and foremost, write down all the difficult words and pass me a message. Then we will discuss the lines one by one and then try to understand what is the idea. Hurry up and write down. Okay, my dear students, I hope that you guys have completed. My dear students, we have been discussing about Ode to a Nightingale, one of the masterpieces written by John Keats. In the first stanza, we discussed about the suffocation actually undergone by John Keats and how he explained the terrible situation when it comes to his physical life and what kind of mental depression that he had undergone in his life and how he tries to give some kind of comparison when it comes to the life of the nightingale, where the nightingale is singing quite happily uh, in a greenery environment, where the poet is not envy, or else the poet is not jealous about the happiness of the bird, but the poet is too happy about the happiness of the bird because the poet also wants to join the happiness enjoyed by the particular bird. So in the first stanza, I explained you, the poet clearly exposes the idea that what kind of mental suffocation, what kind of physical suffocation that was actually undergone by the poet. In the second stanza, we discussed about the difficult words. There are a lot of difficult words that we have to understand. So the explanation will be given after explaining all the difficult words. As you can see here, we discussed about a lot of difficult words. When I started this discussion, I explained you when we discuss about John Keats, one of the fundamental features that we can identify when it comes to John Keats, in almost all the poems written by him, he used this Greek mythology. Different gods and goddesses, different rivers, different situations, from Greek mythology has been utilized by him in order to beautify his poetry. So, without understanding this Greek mythology, it will be very difficult to understand his poetry as well. So, that is why I have explained you all the difficult words. So, I hope that you guys have completed. Rishma, did you finish Puta? Shall we move on to the next part?
Okay, sir.
Right, okay. So we will move on to the idea. So here we have the word Hippocrene. Hippocrene, that word is very much important. Hippocrene is the fountain of the muses, another Greek mythology here. You can put a star and write down, right? Greek mythology. Again, we are discussing about Greek mythology. Hippocrene is the fountain of the muses, a group of 8 women, again in Greek mythology, who inspire struggling poets. So Hippocrene can be taken as a fountain where they from this fountain, what they can do, they can actually inspire the struggling poets. So now the John Keats can be taken as a struggling poet. Why? What is the reason? The reason is that he is suffering from tuberculosis. He is suffering from tuberculosis, so he is a struggling poet. I explained you, he is suffering mentally as well as physical, so you can understand that. Who inspires struggling poets? The fountain bubbles up out of the earth when Pegasus, the famous flying horse, is supposed to have dug his hoof into the ground. It closed the blushful because the beaker of the wine is topped full by the wine, right? So here you can see the picture, right? So this particular fountain is very important to us because the fountain bubbles up out of the earth where Pegasus, the famous flying horse, is supported to have dug his hoof into the ground. It calls the blushful because the beaker of the wine is topped full by the wine, right? So here the poet actually wants to drink a certain cup of wine full of these bubbles or else hypocrisy, right? So the poet is trying to find the lost inspiration when it comes to his poetry. The lost inspiration is actually found by him because we all know that he is suffering mentally as well as physically due to tuberculosis. So here also we can find another Greek mythology used by the poet in order to explain the suffocation at the same time to find out the lost inspiration. So hurry up and write down. We will connect them together and finally we will try to understand the entire idea of the second stanza in simple English. Hurry up and write down. Right. I hope that you have completed the explanation. So we will move on to the entire explanation, right? I will read the stanza number 2, my dear students. I hope that you have the poem with you, right? So I will explain line by line. Oh, for drought of vintage that hath been. So he is explaining, I wish I had some vintage wine. Vintage wine means old wine. When the wine is old, right, the quality of that particular wine will be much more higher. So when it comes to our day-to-day English, we use the phrase, as old as wine. So the quality is perfect. That is the idea, right? The quality is perfect. I wish I had some vintage wine that has been stored for years deep in the belly of earth, right? So he wanted to escape. Now, normally we take alcohol, we take all the liquor and all the wine and all the other spirits because we wanted to escape from the problems. That is why most of these males and females, they used to have some beer or arak, because like it gives some kind of temporary pleasure, right? It gives some kind of temporary pleasure. So now the poet is trying to actually use another method. Now, previously he used several methods where he tried to actually go through the Leith River and he tried to use some drugs. Now he is going to use wine. This is what we can understand, right? Where he openly says, I wish I had some vintage wine that has been stored for years deep in the belly of earth. Furthermore, cooled a long age in the deep delved earth. Now, what is the meaning of deep delved earth? I think you have got the poem, so you can read the poem and try to understand. Deep in the belly of the earth. That is the idea. Deep delved earth means deep in the belly of the earth. Wine that taste of flowers and the countryside of dancing, folk songs, and happy sunshine. Tasting of flora, right? In the third line, stanza number 2. I am in the third line of the stanza number 2, my dear students. Please make sure to go through the poem as well, right? Even after this particular lesson, you can go through the recording, and please make sure to go through the poem and go through the lines, Puta, right? Tasting of flora and the country green. Tasting of the flora means the flora refers to flowers, right? Taste in the flowers, as you can see here, taste of flowers and the countryside. Country green means countryside, right? The pastoral setting. If you refer to almost all the romantic poets, especially referring to P.B. Shelley, especially referring to William Wordsworth, this pastoral setting can be taken as one of the major features when it comes to these romantic poets, right? This is what you have to understand. There are certain key features that you have to understand, Rishma, when it comes to these romantic poets, right? They had immense love towards nature, right? They had immense love towards nature. And most of their messages are very much subjective. What do you mean by subjective? Individuals. Now, John Keats, he did not write for the fame. He did not try to impress other people. He did not try to impress his girlfriend. He did not try to impress any other poet. He wrote about his personal suffocation. He wanted to escape from his personal suffocation. That is why he wrote poems. Can you understand? That is what we call subjectivity. That is what we call subjectivity when it comes to romantic poets. So these are the key features, my dear students, that you have to pay your attention, right? If I could drink a bottle of wine that would transport me to warmer southern lands. Now you can understand, he wants to be some kind of a tipsy person, right? He wants to be tipsy, right? He wants to be tipsy by taking some wine, because that wine or else some alcohol will definitely give him some kind of temporary happiness. Can you understand? Some kind of temporary happiness. This is the second method, Rishma, that he tries to escape from his real world. Now, why Rishma he is trying to escape? What is the problem that he is having, Rishma? Can you explain me? What is the problem, Rishma? Can you tell me the problem? Why he is trying to escape? What is the problem, Rishma?
Due to his physical and mental
Physical
struggles
problem.
that
Very
he
good.
is having.
Very good. Throughout the poem, you have to understand that. Now he is suffering from tuberculosis. That is the physical problem. What is the mental problem? He has lost his brother because of tuberculosis, and because of this terrible disease, he has lost his girlfriend as well. So now he is in depression. He doesn't have anyone in this world. He is in an isolated mood, right? This is what you have to understand, right? That is why he is trying to escape. Vijayantaputa, can you understand?
Yes, sir.
Right. Very good. So we will move on from there. If I could drink a bottle of wine that would transport me to warmer southern lands, right? Please, I need some kind of a chance to go to your world, southern lands, right? This particular world is full of suffocation, full of pain, right? So I don't want to be here. I want to escape. please help me to escape. That is the idea, right? So how he is going to go? Dance, right? He is going to dance for the Provencal song. Provencal song means this folk singing, folk songs and sunburnt mirth, happy sunshine. Sunburnt mirth, happy sunshine. I am in the fourth line, stanza number 2. I am in stanza number 2, fourth line, dance and Provencal song and sunburnt mirth. Sunburnt mirth means happy sunshine, right? Oh, for a beaker full of warm south. Oh, for a beaker full of warm south. If I could drink a bottle of wine that would transform me to a warmer southern lands. Warm south means warmer southern lands, right? For a beaker means a bottle full of wine. He is trying to take a bottle full of wine, and after getting tipsy, he believed that he can move on to the southern land. And furthermore, he says, full of true the blushful hypocrite. Full of true the blushful hypocrite, right? Now we will move on to that part. One full of water from the mythical Hippocrene spring that grants poetic inspiration. I told you the Hippocrene, the Greek mythology comes into consideration here. That part you have to remember. I gave the explanation. So he says that I have lost my inspiration as a poet due to my illness. I have lost my inspiration due to my illness. Now I need that back. I need that back, right? So in order to do that, I have to move on to the southern lands. I have to drink from that Hippocrene, and I will get that poetic inspiration. The bubbles would play on the surface of the glass and in my wine-stained mouth. In my wine-stained mouth, very powerful visual imagery. When you put this nectar into a bottle or else a glass, you can see that beautiful bubbles. Rishma, have you seen that? When you pour that Coca-Cola, nectar or something like that, have you seen those bubbles, Rishma? Have you? Have you seen those small bubbles? Ah, that is the idea here. So I have given the picture, Puta. Can you see the picture, Rishma? The red color picture here, can you see that?
Yes, sir.
And
Yes, sir.
this is what he discusses, right? This is what he discusses. Here, Puta, we have visual imagery. Here we have visual imagery. Vijayanta Puta, can you understand?
Yes, sir, I can.
Ah, right. The bubbles, right? The bubbles would play on the surface of the glass in my wine-stained mouth, where he says the beaded bubbles winking at the brim. The beaded bubbles winking at the brim. Burr, burr, burr sound, right? The continuous sound effect of burr, burr, burr. This is what we call alliteration. Alliteration, right? Alliteration refers to, right, repetition of the consonant sound. Repetition of the consonant sound at the very beginning of the word. Beaded bubbles brim. Burr, 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 right? So you can see alliteration here. We will discuss these poetic techniques later. So however, you can see the visual imagery. Now the glass is full of wine and it is explained with a lot of visual imagery. Beaded bubbles winking, right? The bubbles would play on the surface of the glass and in my wine-stained mouth, right? After drinking all this nectar and all, the entire mouth will become purple color. And here also we can see that visual imagery. All those visual images will come to your mind, right? So he wanted to get drunk. So he openly says that I might drink and leave the world unseen. So Rishma, this is the second effort actually made by him. Vijayantaputta, this is the second effort actually made by him. In the first effort, he actually wanted to drink some kind of opium, or else he wanted to go to the Leith River. So it is kind of a different escape mechanism that we can find out. But here, Vijayantaputta, you can understand he is trying to use wine. He is trying to use alcohol in order to escape, right? In our day-to-day life, even we do that, right? Most of the males, most of the females, when they face some kind of a problem, we take some kind of alcohol, beer, hard liquor, we take that. Why? Because we want to get some kind of temporary happiness. I am not telling that that is bad. I am not telling that is good as well. But however, we do that. In order to do, why we do that? Because to get some kind of temporary happiness. We want to get tipsy, right? To get some kind of temporary happiness. So here also the same idea is given. Yeah, he openly says in the second stanza, one before last, right? He says that I might drink and leave the world unseen. I don't want to see this particular world. Rishma, why he wanted to leave the world? He says that he does not like to see this world. Why? What is the reason? Why? Can you give me an answer? Why he says that I don't want to see this world? Why? Can you tell me the reason, Buddha? Why he says that he does not want to see this world? Rishma, what is the answer? Vijayanta, what is the answer? What is the answer? Why?
Because this world is too cruel for him.
Sorry, I didn't hear you, Buddha. What?
This world is too cruel for him.
Exactly. This world is too much painful for him. Why, Rishma, the world is too much painful? Why again? What is the reason? Why?
He faced too much struggles.
Exactly,
His
because he is
girlfriend
suffering from
left
the
him.
disease. What is the disease, Puta? What is the disease?
Tuberculosis.
Tuberculosis කියන්නේ පුතේ ක්ෂය රෝගය. ක්ෂය රෝගය, right? So he is suffering from that disease. So he says that this world is full of suffering. I want to come to your world. So the second method that I am going to use is actually taking this wine and how he pour the wine into that beautiful beaker and how that beautiful beaded bubbles can be seen from that particular beaker is clearly visualized in this particular stanza. Very powerful visual imagine. Very powerful visual image, right? The bubbles would play on the surface of the glass in my wine-stained mouth, right? The color of the mouth also given here. I could get drunk, forget the world, and escape with you. Escapism. Escapism can be taken as one of the key features when it comes to romantic poetry. Almost all the romantic poets wanted to escape. Almost all the romantic poets. William Wordsworth, he used environment, the beauty of nature in order to escape, right? Samuel Taylor Coleridge, he used supernaturalism in order to escape. John Keats, he used individualism, subjectivity to escape, right? Escape from the reality. On the other hand, if you take William Blake, he's kind of a radical poet. He used radical ideas and methodology in order to escape from the reality, right? P.B. Shelley, he used pastoral setting, the beauty of the environment and the countryside in order to escape from the reality. So you can understand almost all the poets, first generation and second generation, starting from William Wordsworth, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, William Blake, John Keats, P.B. Shelley, almost all the poets in the Romantic era, they wanted to escape from the reality, Puta. They wanted to escape from the reality. This is what you have to understand as advanced level students. We are discussing about the Romantic era, Puta. Still we are in the Romantic era. So definitely in the exam, they will ask, what are the key features of the Romantic era? Definitely. So you have to remember these things, Puta. You have to remember these things, right? This is what I explained. If you take different poets, they had different methodology of escaping. William Wordsworth, he is too much into nature. Most of the poems written by him is based on nature. He is a nature lover. Samuel Taylor Coleridge, he also wrote about nature, but he used supernaturalism, where he used a lot of drugs, right? He used a lot of drugs. And as a result of that, he went to kind of a psychedelic world. He entered to a psychedelic world, right? If you read the poems like Kubla Khan and the Rime of Ancient Mariner, you can understand that, right? He wanted to escape to a supernatural world. If you take William Blake, radical poet. If you take William Blake, radical poet, and he used religion. He used religion in order to escape, right? If you take John Keats, our poet, subjectivity, personal suffocation. That is what he used, right? Hurry up and write down. Please pass me a message. Vijayantaputa, are you okay with the second stanza? Shall we move on to the third stanza? Please pass me a message. Without understanding first stanza and second stanza, don't go to the third stanza. Very difficult poem. Can you understand?
Yes, sir. I can manage.
Right. Okay. Manage means, is there any gray areas? Like, do you have any gray areas that I can cover?
Also, if I see the recordings again, I can understand.
Right. Okay. Very good. You have to go through the recording. Now, I will give you a summary. We have been discussing about the Ode to a Nightingale by John Keats. We discussed two stanzas. In the first stanza, my dear students, we discussed about the suffocation of this particular poet and how the poet is trying to escape to the Nightingale's world and how he tries to explain the suffocation undergone by him to the Nightingale. This is what you have to understand. The poet is not jealous about the Nightingale's happiness, but the poet is actually in a very much happy mood after seeing the happiness of the Nightingale and the beauty of the Nightingale, and the poet is ready to listen the beauty of the song sung by the Nightingale in the dark forest. In the second stanza, my dear students, the situation is totally different. Now the poet is trying to find out the lost inspiration, the poetic inspiration, by going towards the Hippocrene, and later he wanted to drink some fine wine underneath the world or else the earth, and he want to get tipsy. He want to get tipsy, and then he want to go to the fantasy world, right? Then he wants to go to the fantasy world, right? So this is the second idea that we can understand in the first stanza and the second stanza. And my dear students, in the both stanzas, as literature students, you have to find out the reality. The reality is actually how the poet is trying to escape, how the poet is trying to escape from the reality. The suffocation of the poet is clearly understood, right? The poet is actually suffering from mental disease as well as the physical disease, right? I explained you the suffocation. And in the first stanza and the second stanza, we can understand the poet is trying to escape, and the two methods of this escapism is actually clearly mentioned. Now we are moving to the third stanza, where we have a lot of difficult words, and I have marked all these difficult words in red color, as you can see here on the screen. Fade far away, dissolve and quite forget what thou among the leaves hast never known. The weariness, the fever, and the fret. The weariness, the fever, and the fret. Here where men sit and hear each other groan. Here where men sit and hear. See the beauty of the language, Puta. See the beauty of the language. Can you understand these two words? See the rhyming, Puta. See the beauty of the rhyming here. H-E-R-E here and H-E-A-R here. See the beauty of the rhyming, Puta. Marvelous, right? It's a masterpiece. When you read the poem, you can understand it is a masterpiece, right? John Keats can be taken as one of the greatest poets when it comes to the second generation of romantic poets. One of the greatest. See the beauty, right? Here where men sit and hear each other groan. See the here, H-E-R-E here, H-E-A-R here. Here where men sit and hear each other groan. See the beauty. Very beautiful poem. Very beautiful diction. Where palsy shakes a few sad last grey hairs, where youth grows pale and spectra thin and dies. So here in stanza number 3, my dear students, we can understand the poet gives more information about the suffocation that each and every person in this world face. This is the universal truth when it comes to almost all the human beings. Universal truth. This is actually said by Lord Buddha as well. This is actually said by Lord Buddha long before long before John Keats. We have to agree with that, right? Each and every person will grow old. Each and every person will be affected from different types of diseases. Each and every person will die, eventually die. So this is the reality of life. We all have to face that whether we like it or not, right? So this is the suffocation actually explained by John Keats in this particular poem, Ode to a Nightingale, stanza number 3. One by one, we will write down all the difficult words, then we will go to the explanation. We have more, I am sorry. Where but to think is to be full of sorrow, and leaden-eyed despairs, where beauty cannot keep her lustrous eyes, or new love pine at them beyond tomorrow. There are a lot of words that you have to pay your attention. So I will start with the difficult words, right? Stanza number 3. While my explanation is continuing, you guys can write down. Now, dissolve means with reference to a solid, become a cause to become incorporated into a liquid so as to form of a solution. Among the leaves refers to in the midst of beauty and peace in nature, weariness, extreme tiredness, fatigue. Fret means greatly boring. So these are the words. The meanings I have given in red color. So please make sure to write down the difficult words and their meanings. It will help you to understand the poem more broadly. Right, I hope that you guys have completed. So we will move on to the other difficult words, Puta. We have the word groan. This is not actually a difficult word, very popular word. Actually, groan means make a deep, inarticulate sound conveying pain, despair, or pleasure. And we have the word palsy means affect with paralysis and involuntary tremors, right? And spectra means dread of specters and witches affected every aspect of daily life. Leaden eyed means sad eyes having the color of lead. dull gray eyes. Beauty cannot keep the lustrous eyes refers to beautiful women can't preserve their beauty, right? That is the idea given there. Lustrous eyes means shiny eyes. So hurry up and write down. Make sure to write down all the difficult words because that is the only methodology that you have to understand these type of poems because they are very difficult to understand with the archaic language and you have a lot of Greek mythology to understand this. So make sure to write down all the difficult words. Right. So you have two difficult words as well. New love pine at them tomorrow, even new love waste away with the grief of disease within a day. Pine at means long to get a sight of, right? That is the idea in the two difficult words, and make sure to write them as well. Right. Now let's try to identify the idea in simple words, right? So I will read the stanza, right? I will read the stanza and then we will try to understand them. Fade far away, dissolve and quite forget, right? Fade far away means, now I am in stanza number 3, long to disappear. I long to disappear. I want to disappear. Again, the idea of escapism can be seen, right? Again, we can understand the idea of escapism. I long to despair, fade far away, dissolve and quite forget. To forget what you, Nightingale, right? I want to forget what you as well. I want to forget everything. I want to forget everything, right? What thou among the leaves hast never known, right? Nightingale have never had to known, right? So I want to fade away. I want to disappear. I want to forget you as well, right? What thou among the leaves hast never known, right? The wariness, the fever, and the fret. So these three words in stanza number 3 again shows us the suffocation, the wariness, the fever, and the fret, right? So it clearly refers to the nightingale is actually untouched, or else the nightingale's world is untouched by all the exhaustion, sickness, and worry, right? So weariness, exhaustion, fever means sickness, and here fret means the worry that come with being part of human world. So now you can understand the nightingale's world, or else the nature is completely different from the man-made world. This is the idea that the poet tries to explain, right? So now you can understand the weariness, the fever, and the fret. And in the 4th line of the 3rd stanza, where the poet says, here where men sit and hear each other groan. Now, H-E-R-E here means the human world, right? So again, we can understand where people sit and listen to each other groan in pain, right? When it comes to the human world, not like the nightingale's world, human beings are always into different types of sicknesses, right? Different types of diseases, right? Each and every day we face different types of diseases. It can be heart attacks or else diabetes or else anything, we don't know, right? So we face number of diseases, right? So our world is with lot of pain, with lot of agitation, with lot of suffocation, right? But the Nightingale's world is not like that. That is totally different, right? Where people sit and listen to each other groan in pain, where disease and old age are inevitable. When it comes to human world, right, diseases and old age, we all grow old, right? So it is actually inevitable, right? That is something very much important. Where people sit and listen to each other groan in pain, where disease and old age are inevitable, right? When it comes to our world, when it comes to human world, those things are inevitable. You cannot stop that. If you are a human being, definitely you will face all these problems. But when it comes to the Nightingale's world, these problems cannot be seen. So Nightingale is not going to face these problems. As a result of that, the poet thinks that the fantasy world is much more better than the reality, right? That is what we can understand. Where disease and old age are inevitable and where youth fades and dies, right? Youth age will not last long. Now, Rishma is actually enjoying the youth age, right? But I am not enjoying the youth, right? So youth age will not long last, Rishma. For a long period of time, it will not have, right? So definitely it will fade away, right? I also had the same age, right? So it faded away. So for you also the same theory, the same principle will apply. For human beings, even just to think is to feel suffering, heavy sadness and pain, right? So even to think about these things, where he openly says, here where men sit and hear each other groan, where palsy shakes a few, sad last gray hairs. Gray hair means the old age, right? So our hair will definitely change from jet black to silver gray to snow white, right? Jet black to silver gray to snow white, right? So that is what happens, right? This is the reality of life. We all have to face that. So now we can understand, the poet actually explains about the reality of this world, right? And it is kind of a comparison where whatever the realities that we can find out in this particular world cannot be found in the world of the Nightingale. So that is why the poet is trying to escape to that particular world. You can clearly understand, right? The emancipation is quite reasonable because in our world, we all face all these universal truths. No one can escape from that, right? If you are a human being, doesn't matter whether you are rich or poor, whether you are black or white, definitely you will face all these changes, right? But when it comes to the Nightingale's world, the situation is not like that. And pain, in the human world, beauty never lasts and neither does love. In the human world, beauty never lasts and neither does love. Sometimes we think that love will last forever, Rishma, right? Rishma will agree with that because young girls and boys, they fell in love and they think that love will last forever. But we have to understand, before John Keats, Lord Buddha has said the truth. Because of love, terror will occur. Because of love, problems will occur, right? So that is what Lord Buddha has said. Premati jayati soko, premati jayati bayam, right? So before John Keats, Lord Buddha has said that, right? Before John Keats, Lord Buddha has said that. That is the reality of life. So here John Keats tries to explain the fact that none of these things will last long. But when it comes to Nightingale's world, Nightingale does not know anything about this. And that is why the poet is trying to escape. So here we can understand, now we cannot say that the poet is the only person who is suffering from all these problems. Even me, even Rishma, even all the other people in this world, we face the same problem, right? At the end of the day, we will grow old. We have to face these terrible circumstances. We will get paralyzed and we will suffer. So suffering is something very common that we all have to face. But when it comes to the Nightingale's world, the situation will not be like that. The situation will not be like that. Okay, so I'm going to wind up the session from there. So we have discussed actually 3 stanzas. So your next class will be on Friday. We will do the class on Friday. We will start the class 9:30 and we have to discuss the prescribed novel Nectar in a Sea by Kamala Markandeya. And we have started the Tempest as well. So today we completed actually 3 stanzas and next week we will complete from stanza number 4, 5 and 6. Very difficult poem to understand. make sure to go through the recording again and again, and make sure to listen to the recording again and again, and read the poem very carefully. If you go to internet, you can find number of tutorials refer to this particular poem, so you can read them. You can go to YouTube and search. Number of explanations can be seen, so make sure to use them as well. Right, so we will wind up the session. Thank you so much for joining. Good night. Have a nice day.